to the bag, ayy. Got the foot on the gas, pedal to the metal when the lane moving fast, ayy. Let them all cross. If they hate, then let them hate and make a bigger boss, ayy.
Hey guys, before we jump into the episode, I wanted to let you know it is brought to you by the NMFTA. Let me ask you a question. Do you ship LTL freight? Then listen up, because the NMFC changes went live on July 19th, and they're the biggest updates in the history of freight classification. Now more than ever, accuracy matters. That's why carriers, shippers, and brokers alike are turning to Class IT Plus, the NMFTA's new digital platform for real-time NMFC data. Stop guessing, start classifying smarter, and quote freight with confidence. It's time to get your ship together because the NMFC changes are already here. Learn more at nmfcchanges.com and get started with Class IT Plus at classitplus.com. Just do me a favor and let them know that the Freight Coach sent you. This episode is brought to you by SPI Logistics, the premier freight agent logistics firm in North America. For over 40 years, SPI has been diligently building the most successful freight agent network to provide first-class relationships for our shippers, receivers, and carrier partners. We are more than another transportation network. We are a dedicated team of professionals united by one singular purpose, and that is to expedite our agents' success. All of our agents are set up for success on day one, as they are provided with a full suite of support staff that is ready to assist them with everything from after-hours emergencies to financial and administrative needs on a no-fee basis. This way, you can focus on continuing to grow your business. There is no financial risk to start, and you have the ability to earn up to 75% in commissions. If you are looking to take control of your financial future and build your business with the backing of one of the most successful logistics firms in North America, visit www.spi3pl.com to learn more. Do me a favor and let them know that the Freight Coach sent you. What is up, ladies and gentlemen? We are back. We are live. It's the Freight Coach Podcast, the top podcast in transportation, coming to you guys every single weekday, 8:30 a.m. Pacific, 10:30 Central, to break down some industry headlines. But most importantly, you guys provide some actual insight into what you can do with all of this information. This is your first time tuning in. Welcome. This is the real side of freight, ladies and gentlemen. And I say that before every single show. And what I mean by that is I only speak with transportation professionals, because at the end of the day, I want to talk to the right individuals who have done what you're looking to do or who are currently doing what you're trying to achieve. So you can take that information, apply it, utilize it, and see a meaningful difference in your business and your life. Happy Wednesday, everybody. I got a very special guest for you guys here today. I'm going to bring him up in just a second. But just a quick reminder, today, the Freight Coach newsletter dropped. It's once a week, only on Wednesdays, and I don't auto sign you up. So if you're listening to this, you're like, Chris, you have my email address. Why am I not getting it? I don't want to just do that to people. I just need you to go to thefreightcoach.com to register for it. It'll auto prompt you. I couldn't tell you who signed up for it. I don't even know where it's stored. I just pay the invoice for the software that we use. But yeah, guys, it's just value added. It's all industry specific. We talk rates, fuel prices, industry insights, and it's all about freight, because that's really all I know to talk about at the end of the day. But that being said, you guys, let's talk about what's going on from like a tactical standpoint in the freight market right now. I think it's very easy to sit here and point at data points and say, this is what's going on and that's what's going on. But like, how do you take that information and bring it down to your customers or your prospects to really add value in a time and maybe a market that you've never experienced before? I'd like to welcome my good friend, David Abell, back on the show to break this down. David, thank you so much for taking the time to join me today.
Yeah, of course, man. Always great to talk freight.
Yeah. So I really want to dive right in, because it's like these last couple of months, it's, for people who've never seen this before, or maybe people forgot that markets change in freight. That's kind of the sentiment that I'm getting out there is people thought that this was never going to happen. And it's easy to rely on fear to bring that down to your customers, right? And like, oh, all this chaos is going on and you can upcharge it. Like, I mean, I'll speak for myself. I'm a capitalist. I love making money, but as a business owner, I got to make money 12 months out of the year. And I don't want to rely on that as a way to like get business or, essentially bully my customers into doing what I want because it financially benefits me.
Yeah, man. There's a lot to unpack there. One of the first things, and so I'm going to throw a bunch of analogies out today, right? I'm the king of analogies. And, when's the best time to plant a tree? 20 years ago, the second best time today. I think if you haven't been having the conversations with your customers of, hey, here's where rates are going. Here's what capacity is having. Like, you should have been having that 6 months ago, right? We all seen it. We could all predict where this was heading. But if you weren't having those conversations, and you need to start now, right? Like, that's the thing. One of the I've been doing this a long time now, and I talk to a lot of our customers. That's something I pride myself on, is having a relationship with them. And a lot of times it comes down to knowledge, right? Like, that's what they keep telling me over and over again. Well, I simply didn't understand this, right? My other provider, or the person I was using before, they didn't explain why the rate went up. And I think that's something, as a broker, it seems like common sense, right? But we sometimes fail to do that, and I hear that over and over again, where companies, a lot of people think that it's just fuel right now, right? They have no idea what's going on with the Supreme Court decision. They have no idea what's on with immigration reform. And so I don't understand that, why and maybe it's a lack of fear, a lack of knowledge, not having that relationship with your customer. But that's something that I just wonder about. Why aren't more brokers just sitting down and trying to explain that with their customers?
I often wonder that as well, right? Like when you're navigating through situations like right now, I think you need to understand that, like, your customers hire you for a reason, right? Like, they're not a transportation company. They're a manufacturer of whatever good or product that they produce out there. They all have competitors out there. They're looking for you to actually show up and keep their freight moving with as little disruption as possible. And you brought up the word relationship here, and I'm gonna get to that in a second, because I want to answer a couple of things that you're describing there. I think it's easier to just, like, raise your rates without context than it is to actually explain the why behind it. Um, I don't understand that philosophy at all, because if I go to my, like, and maybe Dave, for me, it's like, I've built my companies from the ground up, right? Like, zero customers, zero revenue. And I think when I say that, people are like, oh yeah, I'm sure you had, no. I had nothing, right? So it's like, I've been out there prospecting for years to get my business to where it is. And it hasn't grown nearly as much as I thought we were going to be at year 4. But here's the thing that I do have now. I have such a deeper appreciation for my customers, because I know how hard I had to work to get those customers. I think most people don't appreciate the business, because a lot of individuals were handed house accounts, or, hey, these old accounts we used to be working, but they didn't have to actually build it up. And the more and more people I talk to, the more and more that rings true to me, is there's a lot of account managers out there who were kind of seeded some accounts. They didn't build it up from scratch. So, like, they don't understand the work that goes into managing those customers. They think it is just a price, because that's all that they've ever had to provide. They've never had to really show the value of why they're different out there. And I think, like, in times like right now, this is where the real value is. This is where those deep relationships are formed, because once you're able to actually insulate your customer from the volatilities of a market shift out there, that's how you separate yourself from everybody else. So I talked to my customers back in March about, hey, this is what's probably going to happen these next couple of months. Like, the state of California removed 16,000 CDLs essentially on a Friday once, and then a lot of that capacity dried up seemingly overnight. So I was talking to them I was feeding them that information. Like, from my seat, it's different than a lot of people, because, like, I do a lot of industry research for this show. So I have market insights that I send to my customers about what's going on out there, and I can feed them that. And I look at it now, back to your point on relationships. I think people view relationships and say it because they've all been told, like, hey, we believe in relationships. What does a relationship mean to you, though? Right? Because for me, I'm old enough, and, Dave, I'm going to throw you into, we're both old enough to understand that it's not always going to be sunshine and gumdrops. It's not always going to be, beautiful times out there. Like, you're going to have difficult conversations with your customers, but ultimately you need to find a way to have all three parties win over the long term. That might means a personal loss for you. I don't like losing money just as much as the next guy, but I'm not going to put my customer in a bad position to pad my pocket. If my customer says, pick this load up today, and my only option is a $300 loss, I'm taking that $300 loss, even if there's a $500 winner waiting for me tomorrow, because that is what my customer needs from me in the moment.
Yeah, I mean, I think it comes down to value, right? And so what value are you bringing your customer? And maybe that's the relationship that we're talking about,
Mhm.
right? And some of the relationships is you get them a truck when they need it, and that's okay, right? Maybe the relationship you have is they're looking for a low cost provider. In order to keep your costs low, all you're doing is bringing them a truck. I don't like that personally. I've never been a fan of that model. I think a lot of it comes down to just being the best at your craft, right? Like that's I see that. I don't see enough of that these
Mhm.
days, right? There are all these resources out there. It is easier than ever to be informed on the transportation market, right?
Mhm.
Through the industry publications, through blogs, the TIA. There's all kinds of things, right? When I first got started in the industry, it was the transport topics, the huge
Yeah.
things. That's what you were reading,
Yeah.
and heck, by that point, it was 2-3 weeks old. By the time the news, you'd get mailed your magazine, and so there's so much stuff these days. And now, granted, to play the devil's advocate, you can get over right the sensationalists and just reading the headlines and the hot takes on LinkedIn, but I'm talking about like truly understanding the market, right? This is all cyclical, this is all supply and demand, understanding the regulations, understanding the legislation that's coming down. And I think it's like anything, right? Before you have to understand it yourself before then you can talk intelligently about it. I go back to like if you're buying a new car, right? And you have two different car dealers there. And I don't know about you, but I ask a ton of questions, right? I
Yeah.
want to know, hey, what's the motor? What's the fuel mileage? What's that? The car dealer is sitting there and saying, dude, I don't know, right?
Mhm.
Versus the one that's knowledgeable, like you get a warm and fuzzy, right? You feel like that there's value in that relationship. And honestly, I think that's a lot of just like kind of personal self-development, right? I don't know, it can be taught, but the
Mhm.
person has to want that, right? It's more, and that's where I truly believe being a good freight broker, being a good 3PL, it's more than just finding trucks, right? Like at the end of the day, you have to be able to have those relationships, but you have to we have to be able to add value to all parties, right? um, we talked a lot about on the shipper side. I have those conversations with the carriers as well, right?
Mhm.
Because these guys and girls, they're busy, right? They don't have the necessarily the time, the industry expertise that we have, and so they want to know the same thing. Hey, where's the market headed? What are some things that you're seeing? A lot of these things, with MODIS, the Supreme Court decision, all this legislation, this stuff is changing so fast. It's really hard to keep on track of it.
I mean, yes, to everything that you're talking about right there. I look at a lot of, one of your points is about it being able to be taught. I look at it where I can teach anybody they need to know about transportation, but I can't teach a work ethic. I think that's like you either want it or you don't. But I also think like that's the difference between somebody who is a professional and somebody who treats this as a job, right? And again, not everybody loves freight. That's fine. You don't have to, right? Like there's some people here who are like, hey, you know what? It pays me good enough. I'm only going to work Cool. That's if that's your prerogative, run with it. I look at it though is like that's where that competitive advantage really comes from. It's like that's where a real broker actually adds value to the market as a whole, as opposed to the reputation that a lot of brokers have out there to the shippers and the carriers alike, right? Like I get pushback every time I say this, but frankly, I don't care. My carriers are my customers. I don't care that I pay them, right? Like they are a literal direct reflection of me to my shippers, to my customers, and then ultimately to their customers. Because more often than not, in my book of business, I pick up from my customer and I deliver to their customer. And I want to ensure we are all on the same page because I know everybody has competitors out there. You think my shipper out of Denver is the only one who manufactures machines like that out there? Absolutely not. You think your food shipper is the only one who manufactures butter out there? Absolutely not. There is a ton of competition out there. That's what I love about the free market. But like when they're going through and finding that provider and that partner out there, Those are those tangible skills that you need to really develop over your career. Now, you're not going to know it right away, but furthermore, to your point about the driver community, for example, I want to get my drivers running for me as like exclusively as I legally possibly can, to where they're not like a W-2, like a W-1099 for my company. But I look at it where it's like, drivers to me are very simple in their approach, right? They want to be compensated fairly for their work. If there's a layover, they don't want to beg for their money. Just like not one of us would, if I was your employee, David, if I had to beg for you to get my paycheck, I wouldn't want to work for you anymore. You know what I mean? And that's what I think a lot of people are potentially going to experience here during this market. Brokers who have been very well publicized, not paying truck order not used, not paying detention, lying to the drivers about appointment times and everything else to get the truck covered. They're going to have a very challenging time in this market. And that is where ultimately the opportunity lands in your lap, right? Like we personally, if we have to pay a layover or a truck order not used, I send the driver the revised rate confirmation before my customer approves anything, because like ultimately it's not their fault that something happened.
No, 100%. Well, and that's where those are conversations you need to have with your shipper before the bad things happen, right? Like that, that's I'm sure there's an analogy in there, but it's like I think a true professional, and when you have this mutually beneficial relationship, that's what you're talking about. You're not only talking about the good times, you're talking about the bad times, right? I know, in our case, and it's probably like that with many right now. The market is so crazy sometimes to where um, if they have a hot load and they need a truck, like you need to figure out that approval process, right? Like you're not going to be able to hold this truck. And I completely get it, right? Even our best carriers, I completely get it. You got to book your trucks while you can right now. And they're not going to hold the truck for hours and hours while you're trying to chase down your shipper. So you need to have those conversations ahead of time, right? I get it. This is, the standard rate we have, but for hot shipments, how much over are you willing to pay? What's the lead? Do you want me to call you? Do you want me to text you? Like if I have an option for you, I need to get an approval as quick as possible.
Mhm. No, I agree. Putting those timestamps on there, and selling the realities of that to your customers without fear mongering them is a skill that's developed over time, right? Like where if you've had those lead up conversations that we were describing earlier, Dave, about, hey, back in, March, talking about fuel and then talking about the immigration enforcement, talking about the Montgomery case. Once you're constantly supplying them with the information that affects our ability to do our job, they're very aware of that and putting those timestamps on there, right? Like it's like, hey, this hot shipment, I can hold this guy for literally 5. Like this week is the prime example of that for a holiday week. If you're not putting timestamps on your quotes or calling your customer, hey, listen, if we're going to lock this in, we got to lock it in right now. I got to get a rate confirmation to this individual. They're looking to get home. If not, this guy's gone, right? Like it's not. You're not fear selling at that point. You're providing them the realities of what this week is like. And there's 2 different kinds of transportation managers out there that I'm seeing there. I'm seeing a lot of them that started in these last couple of years. They've never seen a tight market before. And then I've seen, a lot of the people that I work with, this is like, hey, we've been here, done that. Like just whatever you need to move the load, just send us the rate. Like I don't need to hear anything further than that. And that's cool, right? So it's like you have that mutual respect and built up. And, I think that this is potentially going to be one of the greatest opportunities out there, Dave, that I don't know if a lot of us have ever seen before, from an opportunity to grow their book of business, because we went from absolute chaos during COVID to a long drawn out period of mediocrity. And what I mean by mediocrity, low rates, excess capacity. As a broker, if you couldn't cover your customers' freight during these last couple of years, I don't think you should be moving freight at all. Now, from a new business development perspective, it's been drudging along the bottom. It's been very, very challenging to get in the door with individuals out there because there has been excess capacity. I think now that the tide's starting to shift a little bit and people's operational inefficiencies are starting to come to light, this is where the real freight professionals are going to be able to separate themselves by miles and miles and miles. Because to me, I need to isolate and insulate my customers from any market irregularities out there. And that's all just by having a conversation. Sometimes I don't like having that conversation, but it's a conversation that needs to be had. It sets them up for success just as much as it does for me.
Yeah, no, that's interesting, Chris. I don't know, dude. We've been doing this for 36 years,
Yeah.
right? And so it's cyclical, right? And that's what we talk about it all the time. What playbook are we in? I think there's opportunities for everybody in all markets. I I would almost caution people though of like the extremes, right? Like, oh my gosh, this is the worst market we've ever been in. What am I going to do? And oh my gosh, this is the best market we've ever been in. I heard this quote a long time ago, and I love it. And I've ran our business this way. Is so you take business and think of it in a decade, right? In a 10-year increment. In 10 years, you're going to have 2 really good years. You're going to have 2 really bad years, and you're going to have 6 so-so years. And so you just know that, right? Like you just know that's going to happen. And so you have to be able to plan for that, right? You can't get too high on the good years, you can't get too low in the bad years, and you got to know what kind of year you're in, right? If you're in a good year, then yeah, you may lean into it a little more resources, right? If you're in a bad year, you maybe pull out a little more resources and be a little more leaner. But I that, I think that's what screws up this market, though, right? Is when everyone's like, "Oh my gosh, the highs are never going to be low again," right? We
Mhm.
saw that during COVID with people going crazy hiring folks, right? These freight brokers are trying to explode because they think that this is the new normal. Trucking companies are trying to double, triple, quadruple in size because they think this is the new normal. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that you shouldn't use this as an opportunity.
Yeah.
I think, man, I think every day in this business is an opportunity, is all I'm
Mhm.
saying. And I think that the people that are disciplined, they're doing the same things day in and day out. We had a meeting a couple years ago, and we were talking about, because it was maybe we were at like the worst possible point in what was happening when the freight trough, and we're like, oh my gosh, we button down the hatches, like what are we going to do? And we come up with this kind of 6-point plan, and I'm like, well, wait a minute. We should be doing that in every market, right? You're trying to get new customers. You're trying to watch expenses. You're trying to, create operation efficiency. So it doesn't matter what kind of market it is. I don't know. I'm a big believer in discipline. You know me, and I think it's that discipline, that consistency. Those are the companies that win day in and day out.
Yeah, man, I run the same play. It doesn't matter what the market is. I literally do I communicate the exact same way. I think a very, very simple analogy is if you're good enough to make $1,000 on a load, you better be good enough to lose $1,000 on a load, and your customer should never know the difference, right? That is the level of service and communication we strive to provide. Are we perfect? Absolutely not. Far from it, right? We can always get better. I don't ever like I don't believe my own Kool-Aid and press clippings and I don't believe any of that shit, man. My sole job is to get more efficient. My sole job is to provide a better product and service to my customers and my carriers out there. And I think that more people try and mold to the current situation as opposed to, hey, what's the playbook that we should run no matter what? And to me, it's like, I mean, everything that we're seeing right now is just like it was the last market swing, right? When they're like, I'm going to communicate the same way. I'm going to service my customers the same way. The price is the price at the end of the day, right? Like, in most seasoned shippers out there understand market fluctuations. They understand that prices go up, prices come back down. But at the end of the day, the freight needs to move. And for me, it's like your ability to source real capacity is the value that you really deliver to the market. I think people try and make what we're doing way more complex than they need to. I'm never going to sit here and say what we do is easy. It's not easy, but like our core execution play is the exact same, right? Find the right truck for my customers laying out there. Once like we've worked with each other long enough, repeatedly keep them running for our customers out there. And, and then again, from a business development perspective, knowing who to go after. That is one thing where it's like, yeah, we're throwing a couple more Hail Marys right now than we have in years past. I'm not playing scared, but like I understand that a lot of the business that we're looking for, that stability in a customer, i.e., they have a lot of volume, those take years to build. And I need to put myself in a position now where I got to, to your analogy earlier, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. I'm starting to plant that tree right now because in a couple of years, we're going to be a lot bigger. We're going to have a lot more resources and a lot larger headcount where we're going to be able to accommodate any size shipper out there. But that's going to start with me. So it's like now my entire focus has shifted solely into like removing a lot of leads from my outreach, from my CRM, shout out Sales Dash. I don't go after certain accounts anymore. And then I'm also not going after certain accounts that just don't fit the mold of what I need. I need volume inside of my business. That's like the greatest threat to my company right now is I need consistency to offset the seasonality of some of my customers to keep that revenue coming through my books.
Yeah, I mean, this is a great time to top grade, right, and to upgrade. I think that I think the biggest thing is, right, what goes up must come down, and
Mhm.
so this is a cycle, just like anything else. I think we're still very very early in the cycle, but I also think that this is not the new normal. You'd hear that over and over again in COVID. And so, we saw it, right? It was crazy. It was generational, it was shot in the arm, all these, things people would say, but the market came back down, right? It always kind of rebalances. It'll rebalance when this as well. And so I think the biggest thing to think through is like when the market changes, which it will, what is the thing you wish you would have done differently
Mhm.
looking back on it, right? I always like to ask myself those kind of weird questions of like, because I feel like so many times we get caught up in the moment that we don't think thoughtfully enough about it, right? We don't appreciate it. And so it's always like, okay, when this is over, what is the one thing I wish I would have done differently? Yeah, I think to your point, prospecting differently, right? Shooting your shot on some of these companies that you probably didn't have a chance with a year ago, that they're probably feeling it, right? A lot of times in sales, it's luck and timing. It
Yeah.
it truly is luck and timing. I tell our people all the time that this is not a complicated job. It is truly not. It's a hard job,
Yeah.
but it's not a complicated job, and those are two different things. And but it's luck and timing. A lot of times you have to you have to have some good luck. And I'm a believer that we create our own luck, right? We create our luck based on our habits. You're never going to land that new shipper if you're never trying. That, like, I know that for a fact. And the second thing is sometimes you need a market, something that's disrupting like this, right? Where their prices all of a sudden get up, or their other provider, they didn't have an issue, right? Their other provider's been able to source trucks for 3 years. Now they can't all of a sudden, right?
Mhm.
They're putting a doubt in the customer's mind. And so that's where I think a good broker like, now's your time to shoot your shot, right? Get in front of them and say, hey, I've been here. I've been calling you. I've been doing the work. Now give me a shot with this.
Yeah. No, I agree, man. It's just that confidence that you've experienced something like this before. And if you haven't experienced anything like this before, it's going to be your willingness to know, like, hey, the way things were aren't the way things are going to be for a while. And you need to adapt, to your point there. And like that's, I mean, essentially the confidence that I'm selling myself on is like, hey, this is business as usual right now. There is nothing that I am seeing out there from a data perspective, from a capacity perspective, or even a legislative perspective that is going to change my approach on how I secure capacity. We're not perfect from our carrier selection strategy. I'm sure somebody could find a flaw out there because that's what attorneys love to do. But at the end of the day, everything that's going on right now, I'm taking that as an opportunity. Hey, let's tighten the strings a little bit more. Let's see what more can we do to protect ourselves out there, and then ultimately protect our customers. Because I think like that's where another opportunity is going to really come into play here is the stability of your organization. I think a lot of the larger brands out there, the more and more things start to come out, the more lawsuits that they're inevitably going to be drug into, because I think the big fallout from the Montgomery case out there is shippers are going to inevitably get pulled into litigation here. Because I think I'm not a lawyer. This isn't legal advice. I'm never going to say that this is, but I understand how people think, and they're going to be like, well, wait a second. If the broker hired the carrier, but you hired the broker, you have deep pockets. I can sue you too. I think that that's all that's going to come into play here. But I think your carrier selection strategy, and then furthermore, I think as margins start to get compressed here, because I think we will hit that inevitable ceiling where shippers are like, hey, I'm done raising rates. Carriers are going to continue to creep up and brokers are going to get squeezed. I think the financial viability of your company is going to be called into play here sooner than a lot of people think. And if you're operating with cash flow constraints out there and you do not have a clean balance sheet, that might cost you business here in this next cycle.
100%. I mean, at the end of the day, cash is king, right? And so I don't care how much you've sold. I don't care how much you've shipped. How much have you collected on it, right? Like, what's your AR look like? What's your AP look like? That continues to amaze me. That a company will they work so hard to do all the hard things, but then you take a look at their books and they have a couple $1 million outstanding out there, and it's like, well, why aren't you working just as hard to get paid as you did to sell the load and to find the carrier and to build a relationship and all this stuff? You, especially in times like this, right? Because the invoices are larger, right? And most of the time, the reality of it is a broker is a bank, right? Like at the end of the day, I wish it wasn't the case, but in most cases, we're paying our carriers sooner than we're getting paid from the customers. And let me clarify that statement. I think that carriers deserve to get paid quick, right? Like I don't think a carrier should have to wait 60, 90, 120 days before they're getting paid. They have all these expenses out there that that they need compensated for.
Yeah.
But the larger the shipper you work with, the longer their pay terms are, and so that's where a good broker comes in there. But the reality of it is, the $800 invoice a year ago is now a $1,600 invoice, and so that's more money that we're having to front out there. And if you don't have the cash wherewithal for that, or you don't have, a line of credit or financing secured, like you're going to have a lot of issues. And I don't think a lot of people understand that even in a good market, when rates are up, maybe you've acquired some new customers. Like if you don't have your back office figured out like that, you can sink your company just as easy as you can in a down market.
No, I agree. And I think that's a natural progression in business that I think a lot of people learn the hard way. I know I learned that the hard way, right? When it's like you go from not making any money at all, Dave, to like, holy shit, I got actual cash flow coming in. And then you think it's going to last forever, to one of your earlier points. And then you mismanage your cash flow, and then you hit bottlenecks out there. And again, that's like one of those things where I say entrepreneurship's not for everybody, man. Like you got to have some thick skin to deal with like 12 grand owed on the first and you're owed 15 on the 30th and you're begging somebody to deposit the money. It takes a lot. And then you don't have the cash flow in your bank account to, pay out your bills. It's a lot, right? And there is times when invoices are increased and everything else that can sink a ship just as much as a bad market.
Well, and the thing I think that a lot of shippers don't quite understand is that, there's situations where the shipper may have to pay the invoice twice, right? Like if, through Carmack, there's a lot of legal responsibility there, to where if you partner with a bad broker that goes out of business, their bond runs dry and they didn't pay that carrier, then I don't think they understand that. And that's part of my mission, is to educate everyone of like, I get it, right? We all have a budget, we're all price sensitive. I think it's less about and that comes back to explaining, right? Explaining, well, how much do you want to pay? How much do you think the shipment is worth? Do you have any idea? Well, let's look at some data, right? To understand that, because it's not just, well, this is what this guy that cold called me said he could do it for. Well, let's look at that. Let's look at this guy's credit. Let's look at his days of pay. Let's look at what carriers say about this guy, right? And that's where I think we, just as an industry, we could do a better job of educating our shippers.
Yeah.
I don't think at the end of the day, I don't think it's their fault. I just think that there's not enough. We have all these resources available to us as freight brokers. I don't think there's that many. There's either not as many resources available to the shippers, or if you think about it, a lot of these manufacturers, they're so stuck in the widgets that they produce, and rightfully so, right? Like the whole company identifies as this widget manufacturer. They don't even really identify as a shipper, right? We label them as a shipper, but they don't identify themselves as a shipper. And so I think the more we can do to talk to them about that, to understand that. I still love the conversations with folks about like, wait a minute, tell me how you're procuring capacity. You're BCCing 50 different brokers to try to find the lowest rate. Okay, on paper, I could see how you may think that is the right strategy, but let me tell you what's really happening, right? These 50 brokers now, they're competing for the same 5 trucks. Now these same 5 trucks think that there's an artificial demand out there, right? So you actually just raised your rates quite a bit whether if you would have just partnered with 1 or 2 good providers.
No, I agree with that, man. And I know we're a couple minutes over, but it's see, Dave and I literally decided on the angle we were going to take before we started the show today. And dude, it flew by because like there's so much tactical advice you're giving out there. And I think ultimately people love like we were talking about, like with relationships, they love to throw that out there, but they view it as a transactional relationship. They don't actually believe in the longevity of a relationship. And if you've ever been married or had a significant other or a long-term friend, you understand that there's good days and bad days that are out there, but ultimately your ability to effectively communicate is the most important thing you can bring to any equation out there. And, you know, it's like, I literally live and die by this adage. I might have heard it from somewhere. I don't remember where, but my thing is I would rather lose a customer for telling them the truth than keep one on a lie. And as long as you can adhere to that intent, I think like you will be successful by default, because not everybody has that mentality as they're going out there. And it's like, again, there's been so many transactions that have came across my desk that I'm like, I could make a killing in this situation, or I could save my customer money by telling them the truth. Hey, those 2 partials, let's just 1 pick 2 drop those. It's, you know, here's the rate discount that we're going to be able to offer you because here's our thing. Like, I could very easily take the opposite approach, but like, again, when you've built something from scratch, I think you have a deeper appreciation. Not everybody, but you have a deeper appreciation for those customers that gave you a chance when if they didn't, you could have easily been out of business because you ran out of operating capital.
100% agree.
Dude, Dave, thank you so much, man. How does anybody reach out to you to find out more about what you guys got going on? If you're hiring out there in Illinois, let them know.
Yeah, no, I'm on LinkedIn. Yeah, shoot me a message.
Perfect. If you guys can't find Dave, hit me up. I will gladly put you guys in contact with him. That's going to be it for today, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be back on Friday. We got a recorded episode coming out tomorrow for our annual Red, White, and Better Than You show that we do every 4th of July. But that's going to be it for today, ladies and gentlemen. As always, if you got value in what you heard and you're not subscribed, subscribe to the show, you guys. And if you're feeling ambitious, rank it on iTunes and Spotify, because if you see value, your network's going to see it as well. I appreciate you guys. I love you guys. And we'll be talking to you soon.
Came back with a bang, window down, yelling out money, anything. Ayy, ooh, got the foot on the gas, pedal to the metal when I'm getting to the bag. Ayy, got the foot on the gas, pedal to the metal when the lane moving fast.